The incredibly fast-growing economies of the world. According to the projections, the fastest-growing economies through 2030 will include China, Vietnam, Uganda, Indonesia, and India. In the Atlas of Economic Complexity, experts from Harvard University's Growth Lab presented updated growth estimates and came to that conclusion. The report provides the first in-depth examination of 2020 trade data, which covers the significant impacts of the global pandemic on tourism and exports on transportation vehicles. Hello everybody and welcome back to Proactive Investing. Stay with us to the end of the video to get to know all the details about the incredibly fast-growing economies of the world. Before we move on, please smash that like button and subscribe to Proactive Investing to never miss the newest content about investing and economics. Long-term growth is anticipated to accelerate between Asia, Eastern Europe, and East Africa as the pandemic's impacts fade. Even though the estimate reveals the development is decreasing from the country's accomplishments over the past decade, China is still predicted to have the fastest expanding GDP per capita. According to the report, Vietnam and China will enjoy the quickest development over the next 10 years since they have diversified their manufacturing into more complicated industries. The Economic Complexity Index, or ECI, which measures the variety and complexity of the productive capacities embedded in each country's exports, has been updated by the Growth Lab experts. Despite the pandemic's impact on trade, ranking of countries' economic complexity shows remarkable stability. According to the ECI ranking, Japan, Switzerland, Germany, South Korea, and Singapore continue to be the 5 most complicated nations in the world. The United States is ranked 12th, China is ranked 16th, Italy is ranked 17th, and the United Kingdom is ranked 10th. Variations in a country's economic status can be well explained by the Economic Complexity Index. The Philippines, whose ECI is 30th, China, which is 16th, and South Korea have had the biggest advancements in the ranks among the most complicated nations for the 10 years ending in 2020. Vietnam ranked 51st, Cambodia ranked 72nd, Laos ranked 89th, and Ethiopia ranked 97th are the developing economies that have had the most progress in increasing their complexity. Botswana ranked 111th, Zimbabwe ranked 114th, Ecuador ranked 119th, and Cuba ranked 120th. The nations with the quickest reductions in complexity ratings over the previous 10 years have become more reliant on exporting raw materials or have neglected to diversify their economies. France, which is ranked 19th, which is one of the most complex nations, dropped the most on the list, losing 6 points. So are you guys excited to know the fast-growing economies of the world? Yes? Well, perfect, because here's number 1. Number 1, Guyana. Over the next few years, Guyana's GDP will grow at a rate that is by far the fastest. The optimistic expectations are caused by a boom in oil. The world predicts that as new projects come online, oil production will increase to more than 400,000 barrels per day, or BPD, by 2024, up from almost nil in 2019. There have been dozens of oil finds in recent years, with the most recent occurring in October of 2022. Public spending should increase as a result of the surge in the fiscal receipts. This should help the non-oil economy, along with the government's local content policy that favors Guyanese people and businesses in the energy industry. Despite this outlook is fraught with danger. The expanding energy industry might cause favoritism, erode institutions, and divert funds from services and production. Protests and racial conflicts are additional clouds in the sky. The average growth of the economy of Guyana from 2022 to 2026 is 25.8%. The World Bank estimates Guyana's dependence on an extractive industry is growing, which makes it more susceptible to oil-related shocks. It also faces well-known concerns brought on by resource-dependent economies, a growing reliance on the government that could hurt competitiveness of the private sector, and a breakdown of institutions. Maintaining a functioning sovereign wealth fund is essential to reducing the disparity between the influx of resources and the economy's capacity to absorb them, whilst also minimizing waste. Additionally, the environmental effects of oil production must be properly taken into account too. Number 2, MACAO. Over the prediction horizon, MACAO, a special administrative region of China, is anticipated to grow at a second fastest rate in the world. Instead of good underlying economic prospects, this will primarily reflect a base impact following one of the worst pandemic-related downturns in history. Due to Macao's reliance on tourism and gambling, China's zero-tolerance COVID-19 policy and border restrictions have severely harmed the region's economy. The robust growth forecast for the upcoming years depend on China's COVID-19 policy eventually relaxing and the following uptick in international tourist arrivals. There are risks associated with the nation's dependence on a single sector, gambling, and on many visitors from the mainland. The average economic growth of MACAO from 2022 to 2026 is 11.9%. According to the Economist intelligence unit, the return of Chinese tourists is still necessary for MACAO to recover, although the EIU does not anticipate this to happen until around mid-2023. Up until 2024, recurrent outbreaks will maintain gambling and tourism activities below pre-crisis levels. The renewal of casino licenses, which is set for the end of 2022 and includes the 3 US-owned casinos in the territory, is not expected to be impacted by deteriorating US-China relations. However, as tensions rise between the US and China over the next 10 coming years, this risk will continue to exist. Before moving on to the next economies, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to receive notifications whenever a new video is posted. Number 3. Fiji. Like MACAO, Fiji depends heavily on international travelers, especially those from Australia and New Zealand. As a result, the economy had GDP drop of nearly 15% in 2020 when the epidemic was at its worst and harsh quarantine regulations were implemented in Australia and New Zealand. Fiji then experienced another, smaller decline in 2021. Due to the sharp decline, a beneficial base of comparison has been established, which will moderate growth over the course of our projected period as tourism increases. Visitor numbers will drop by more than half in H1 2022 compared to pre-pandemic levels. Risk considerations for the nation include its limited economic base, susceptibility to natural calamities, and huge public debt, as well as significant current account deficit. The average economic growth rate in Fiji from 2022 to 2026 is 7.7%. According to the Asian Development Bank, the number of visitors arriving in July of 2022 was over 82% higher than it was before the COVID-19 pandemic, with tourists from Australia accounting for 101% of all arrivals, Canada for 76%, New Zealand for 90%, and the United States for 94%. In the absence of COVID-19 strains with a greater degree of severity, the robust tourism recovery will last the entire year. Fiji is projected to draw more corporate conferences, travel incentives, international conferences, and exhibitions in the upcoming months as a result of being the first to move. Number 4. Niger. The economy of Niger will benefit from growing oil exports and production in the upcoming years. In particular, it's anticipated that the almost 2,000-kilometer oil pipeline to the Beninese port of Siem will be in use by then. Support will also be provided to the construction of the Kandaji Dam and its eventual completion. Despite this, at the conclusion of our forecast horizon, the nation will still be among the poorest in the world. Additionally, GDP per capita growth will be noticeably less spectacular than the headline GDP growth due to a population increase of nearly 3% annually. There are many risks, including civil unrest, political instability, terrorist group attacks, climate change, and increased pricing for agricultural inputs. The average economic growth rate in Niger from 2022 to 2026 is 7.6%. According to the World Bank, to support a trajectory of growth that is more robust and inclusive, extensive institutional and economic reforms are required to boost overall productivity, particularly in agriculture. Reforms should improve economic governance, particularly ensuring the petroleum industry rents are invested to promote inclusive growth. And at number 5, Libya. Libya's economy, which is heavily dependent on oil exports, should grow quickly in the upcoming years due to anticipated increases in energy production and persistently high crude prices. However, an improvement in the political climate is probably necessary for this. The country is currently divided between 2 rival administrations, one based in Sirte and the other based in Tripoli, as a result of the failure to hold the planned general elections last December. Conflicts between the followers of the 2 governments halted oil production earlier this year. An upside risk of early elections is that they would allow for the unification of the nation under a single government, which would increase the oil production and investment. On the other hand, a continuation of the current impasse between the 2 governments poses a risk since it might result in further violent confrontation and economic damage. The average economic growth rate in Libya from 2022 to 2026 is 6.9%. According to the Economist intelligence unit, the oil industry, which has significant economy-wide multiplier effects, will serve as the primary engine of economic expansion. Strong government spending and investment will result from this, which will then help private consumption recover. The first half of the projected period will see muted growth in the non-oil sector due to the periodic fighting and inadequate service delivery, notably power. However, assuming that the conflict ends and a more cohesive and capable elected government comes into power in the middle of 2024, we anticipate that the security will progressively improve and that the government will work to foster non-oil growth. So what do you guys think about this economic growth rate? Let us know your opinions in the comment section below, and if you're still not subscribed to our channel, then make sure to smash that subscribe button right now and check out some other videos on our channel just like this. We'll see you in the next video.